I was gonna say you're one of the few documentary filmmakers I haven't interviewed over the years, even though I've known your work. Going back to the Crash Reel, I think was the first movie of yours I've seen. So,
I feel like a lot of my movies were not like the last few years. I haven't had like a done much press, and then even like the Crash Reel was I love that movie, but it was HBO, so we didn't do much press, and some of them we haven't done much press. And then Buena Vista, sadly, the producers didn't have the chain of title, so we didn't do any press. And so I feel like I haven't done press for a while, which is maybe why.
yep.
And like when I was really doing press was like 2010, 11 type of thing. So I don't know if you were doing it then, but
Yeah.
that I
But
was doing.
but also it's also hard to pitch documentaries to editors at websites because they just want Star Wars, Marvel. You know how it is, I'm sure. It has it
Well,
hasn't
we've
changed
got
much.
Lhakpa, so I'm so happy you're doing this. This is so great.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was funny because I had seen this movie Pasang in the Shadow of Everest, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with or knew about it.
Yeah, yeah, totally. We worked with the filmmakers to get the footage that we got of Pasang
Oh,
and
okay,
to make
good.
sure that we didn't tread on their toes because we're very appreciative of Pasang in our world. Yeah.
But I saw that movie not having any idea that there was another woman who actually had summited more than once. So I saw that movie. I was like, oh, but it's impossible. How no one else will do this? And it's like, no, it happened. But
Yeah.
yeah. How and when did you first find out about Lakpa and her
Yeah.
achievements? I mean, had she already been? Has she already summited when you first find out about her? And
I cut to 20 years ago, 2004. I spent 6 months in Tibet, and Everest is half in Tibet, half in Nepal. And in 2004, I spent 6 months climbing two Himalayan climbs shooting to make a film called Blindsight,
hmm,
which I can now kind of call my first Everest movie. And that really taught me so much about how to shoot a climb. And it also taught me about the Sherpa people because we were climbing and working with them. And that whole region I was absolutely fascinated with and fell in love with. And in 2004, something very dramatic happened to Lhakpa at base camp, and we all heard about it. And she had already summited, and that incident kind of becomes the centerpiece in a way of our movie. And she nearly dies, and it was very dramatic. Um, and that's how she first appeared on my radar 20 years ago.
hmm. And so how long before you actually met her or approached
Oh
her
yeah,
or
no,
decided to
years.
like? Oh, okay.
Years and years and years. And then there was an interim episode where when I made the crash reel, there was a really nice profile of me in Outside Magazine by a journalist, Grayson Schaefer, who also did a profile of her. And so I'm like, hmm. And that was the next time. That was the only piece that's really kind of scratched the surface of her story and started to mention, that she lives in Connecticut and that she'd had this difficult marriage, and it was very intriguing. And so, yeah, we had a whole team kind of come together. And when I first met her, she was absolutely receptive. She doesn't read or write because she was not allowed to go to school as a kid. And to this day, she's illiterate. She's unbelievably smart. And I think it's a testament to her that she's accomplished so crazy much, given that immense setback, handicap really, and disadvantage. And um, but her kids Googled me, and we met and cried, and I felt that I was really the right filmmaker, for I guess all the reasons. It just felt really right. I knew how to shoot Everest, and I knew that to do her story justice, I wanted to give her a proper climbing movie. We're not, you know, Marvel, but she's kind of a superhero. I wanted to give her the superhero treatment. And also, she's had this unbelievable life. And I am the kind of filmmaker that loves putting together this jigsaw puzzle and weaving together the stories, but in a really vivid, cinematic, watchable, entertaining way, so that you really get a vivid, watchable movie that can really break out of, a kind of documentary niche and really spread her story far and wide. And of course, we made this movie independently. We didn't have Netflix on board when we made it, but we had this dream come true, whereby Netflix came in and acquired us for global distribution on the Netflix platform, which is a real fairy tale for us because Lhakpa actually set off to climb. I mean, she didn't climb just because she loves it, although she does, but because she really wanted to show people that women in that region were capable of more, because no Nepali woman had ever summited. Pasang was the one who got closest, and she died trying on her third attempt, which I think reminds us, that it's still an incredible, fearsome achievement, especially for a woman. It's really difficult still. So she's climbed it 10 times since then. And in the movie, we follow her on her 10th and hardest climb. I guess that's a spoiler alert. But yeah, but I think the movie sustains it. I think that
Yeah.
it's also sort of not just about that in a big way. In a way, the movie is almost the least of her achievements if you really get to see her story, which we were really hoping that you would.
Yeah. Now what year was that again that you first read that article about her and kind of decided to do something?
I feel like it was 20. Oh my gosh, like it was like 2014, 15, 16, because Crash was 2013.
Oh, right, okay.
It's around there a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
You-
And I climbed Everest 2004.
mm,
Or I didn't climb Everest, coincidentally. I was actually climbing the mountain next to Everest on the other side, which is coincidentally called Lhakpa. True
okay.
story. So that's kind of a funny thing as well, that I knew all about what Lhakpa meant and how Sherpa's name for the day of the week that they're born on. So there was a lot of Lhakpa Sherpas out there, by the way, because any Sherpa person born on a Wednesday gets called Lhakpa, and
Oh,
Sherpa
okay.
is the last name. So so it can get confusing in a modern world outside of the village with a lot of people with similar names.
Yeah. Do you live in the States or do you live in the UK?
I was born and raised in the UK, and I live in Venice Beach, California.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah, I was curious whether or not you were close to Connecticut where you can just go and visit her, or like how'd you reach out to her to kind of meet
Oh
her?
yeah, no, I visit her, and I still describe myself as a New Yorker, although I'm not living there lately. But I spent my whole 20s there. I was really lucky. I got a Fulbright scholarship to go to NYU for graduate school, and then I stayed there for my whole 20s, and still sort of somehow think of it as my home because I kind of really grew up there and um, started making films there, and obviously it's just unbelievable city. So I still really spend a lot of time there, and it's a hop where she lives, is a day trip from New York City in
Mm,
Hartford, Connecticut.
yeah. Um, you kind of answered one of my questions. I mean, I'd seen the crash reel. I've not seen Blind Sight yet. I hope to see it now you have to do this
It's hard
retrospective.
to find, and that's what's really great about the retrospective is
Uh,
that movie was fantastic, if I say so myself. And we got this unbelievable offer from Warner Brothers at Toronto, and we could have had distribution. And the producer had this idea to self-distribute it, which was a cool idea, but it has meant that it's been really difficult to find and it's
mm,
not streaming. And I'm really trying to fix that and work with the producer because I feel like it's just a really special movie. And it happens to be about these really cool blind people, so I know that there's a real blind community that could really treasure it. But it's actually wider than that, and I'm actually really excited for this retrospective, kind of rekindling a little interest in that movie or just reminding people about it because it's really not been available since that came out in 2006.
oh wow, okay.
Yeah,
But I was curious about that because I mean, obviously, shooting on Everest. I mean, I love these mountain dogs. I've never been climbing myself. I would never even think of going.
it's awful. Don't do it. I'm here
How,
to
I mean, it
don't watch it.
looks exciting. It loves the view, but I would never. I mean, yeah, I don't think I even have the physical ability. But I mean, you already shot these other movies on mountains and stuff like that, so you had the experience. But when you went into this one, did you want to kind of approach it any differently, or did you kind of already have that background and you knew you could shoot what needed to be shot for that 10th climb?
It's remarkably similar how we did this, even though 20 years had elapsed. 18, we shot this in 22, the Everest portion. The camera equipment, the cameras are a little bit better now, but not that much. The real like revolutions in the quality of the cameras happened actually right before we shot. So we had state-of-the-art cameras in 2004, and they've changed a little bit. They're definitely a little like better looking, but not like the Vericam was pretty damn good, and you know, so on. So it looked, Blindside looks spectacular, and I think you'd be hard pressed to know the difference if you're not quite technical. And the we had a funny moment in our color session at the end. You know, you do this very, you know, beautiful, expensive, high-tech suite with the like final grading of the colors, color timing. And the super techie, wonderful colorist said, Lucy, it's not the same camera. We're looking at the scenes at the top of Everest and spotting through the movie and figuring out our plan. And he said, you know, it's not the same camera. I said, no. And he said, well, what kind of camera is it? I said, that is a camera at the top of Mount Everest, because we did, you know, even in the current moment, it's not really possible to take the full like Alexa package. You know, you're not going to carry one of those like super snazzy things up there, or maybe some expeditions have more equipment than we did, but everyone up there is operating at the absolute limit, and everything is human carried. And you know, it's really challenging environment. And so we had spectacular camera work on a really good camera, but not quite the same camera that we had below the ice fall, which is this kind of big sort of technical bottleneck, especially on the Nepal side. We were climbing from the Nepal side this time, which has this feature right above base camp that's very dangerous, and gets more so with climate change as well, because it's kind of melting and you have to do these ladders over these crevasses that are just absolutely horrifying, and many people die there every year.
You actually had some footage from her other summits.
Yeah.
Was that, I mean, so she had someone with her shooting all this stuff the whole
You know,
time, or?
I always joke that like most, you know, expeditions on Everest have cameras with them. You know, like if you're staying in the Kathmandu Marriott, which is the one fancy hotel in Kathmandu, you know, it's like climbers and you know, Western climbers and their camera teams, you know, throughout the month of April and May. That's basically the entire hotel population. So you can just see the kind of Everest teams and their camera crews at breakfast every single day. But yeah, everyone takes a camera with them. And and even if it's just a kind of home movie thing from a few years ago. So I was determined to get this material, and I had a really strong suspicion that it would exist, even though at the time nobody really knew much about Lhakpa. There was really nothing apart from that one piece in Outside Magazine and a few headlines when she'd summit, but nothing really. And she said to me, look, Lucy, there's nothing. I don't have home movies. I don't have videos. I don't even have photos, because when she left her house, she had to leave under very dramatic circumstances. And she was kind of taken away in a police car with the kids escaping. And she never got her belongings. She just got her kids out of there, and she never got her belongings. And I said, "Don't worry, I'm sure we can find it." And we tracked it down. And I mean, it took an incredible amount of work. We had an incredible team working on this movie. We worked so hard, just so passionate about trying to track down this material that you could tell the story. Because as a filmmaker, you know, if I couldn't find the material, I should just have written a magazine article or something, right? If I'm going to put something on a screen, it's because it's a screen story told with, you know, video, or we should write a movie and recreate it or something like that, right? But there's got to be something electrifying on a screen. I'm not a kind of documentary filmmaker that thinks, you know, I'm a filmmaker first and foremost. I really am. And I want images to tell the story for the audience to really get the visual storytelling, get the whole full craft experience of watching a great movie. So we were relentless. And I mean, there's material of this expedition she did in the year 2000, but that came from the dailies of another movie that was shot. And there was amazing material, and it took me a really long time to persuade the filmmakers to give us anything, let alone their raw material. But they did, and they were amazing. And so, I mean, the filmmakers were amazing to like dig through storage to find these old cans, you know. And then when we did, you unearth these gems and you see Lhakpa, from the year 2000, clear as a bell, this incredibly self-possessed young woman speaking, like she's incredibly camera shy, but she's speaking with crystal clarity, both about um, her determination and courage. She's asked if she's afraid of dying. And she says, if we were afraid of dying, we'd never make any progress. And she's like this beautiful young woman. It's like she knows where she's going. And then uh, there was a expedition with the Romanian team in 2003, and I've worked with this amazing archival producer for years, and she happens to be Romanian.
No.
So put the Romanian connection to work. And so she's working the Romanian, grapevine to get a hold of that. And then the year 2004 footage, which was really important because this very dramatic incident happened.
Sure.
And I'd heard about this for years, like the story of what happened. I'd read about it at the time. It was in the news in 2004. And the journalist who'd been writing about it in 2004, it's like tough stuff to go back to. It's actually a very harrowing experience for all involved, and nobody really wanted to revisit it. But eventually, he's a brilliant journalist and had written a book about fires, actually, that I really used in my fire film. And so finally, he agreed to an interview, and then we were chatting, and he agreed to go through and find his old material that he and his wife had shot on that expedition. And then it's like this years later of the search, you have kind of digging all around these, turn over every stone you can think of, relatives, like news everywhere. And then we found this material like in the tent with this sort of dramatic stuff, and seeing video of Lhakpa's ex-husband, who's a big part of the story, and all these things you see before your eyes that you've kind of imagined must have happened, and then you actually get the video sort of evidence of them years later. It's really interesting. And yeah, I find that kind of an incredible, making documentaries is kind of like this real sort of excavation of sort of how the machinery of life, when you put together these really longitudinal films. I was really inspired by like the Up series, 7 Up and stuff, or Hoop Dreams, right? When you see many years of life compacted into a screen story, and you see sort of years of someone's just really ups and downs and turning points and motivations and snakes and ladders of a life, and you see them all together, and even how their face changes, their body changes, their whole families situations evolve, etc. They fall in love, they have kids, blah blah blah. And you just see this trajectory of a life like I don't think of any other medium, and I think it beats fiction film in that. I mean, Marvel can do their thing, but I have to say I find this more riveting because it's actually like life as a screenwriter is pretty like unbeatable. And if I'm paying attention, and if I'm doing all this work and I can actually find all those pieces and then weave them together for the audience, I think the audience gets a really incredible ride through an extraordinary life as well.
Well, she's absolutely amazing. I mean, that's this amazing personality character. I mean, she's actually delightful. And when you hear about some of the trauma and the domestic abuse and all this stuff, and she just seems to rise above it, which is tough.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, exactly. I mean, that's it. She climbs right up again. And she says it's her doctor, it's her healing, and it's her spirituality as well. It's a real religion, in the cosmology of Sherpa people who are kind of ethnically Tibetan Buddhist. Everest is the highest god, and it's a female god, but it's an actual god, and they really do pray and revere and respect it. She says, I respect it like my mom. And she prays to it and begs forgiveness if she treads on it, and leaves offerings, and it's a real, in the same way that people might pray or do penance or fast or something. I mean, the act of climbing Everest for her is something like that. It's a real she says it washes away her sins, and it's sort of like it's a way that she finds forgiveness for herself for the things that she's been through. Yeah.
Have her daughters who've grown up in the U.S. have they picked up on some of that spirituality as well? I know one of her daughters was climbing as well. I mean,
Yeah,
have
there's
they?
this great moment in the movie. I don't know if you caught it. It's sort of subtle. There's a great moment in the movie where one, I have to put down my teacup. So I'm English. I'm always drinking tea here. But there's a great moment in the movie where her niece, Lhakpa and her niece, when she comes down from the mountain, it's a very joyful reunion. And Lhakpa's very emotional, very sunburned, very like exhausted. It was just an extraordinary moment. She comes down from the mountain and then she gives thanks and bows, namaste, so greets the God and and the niece, her niece who grew up in Nepal, the cousin of her daughter, like is totally like knows what to do. And then the American, like Connecticut, like gorgeous little Connecticut teenager is like, what do you do? And the niece, her cousin, sort of slaps her together and does this, and she gets it, oh, this is what we do. We're praying now, and it's just this lovely little moment of kind of like just cultural moment of like getting with the culture of your parents, and learning the ways. There's this beautiful, like you said, Lhakpa is so delightful, so charming, so hilarious. I mean, in a way, I mean, her English is just her own. She didn't learn it from books, she didn't learn it from school, but she's so smart, and she grew up with animals and nature, so she kind of tends to talk in animals. When she's describing something, she'll use animals, to describe something in this just precious way. And she's talking with her brother about how they're going to take their daughters each to base camp for the first time. And she says, right now they're like domesticated. They're domesticated. They're like zoo tigers. We've got to turn them into wild tigers like you see, because her and her brother grew up in the
Sure.
mountains. These girls have grown up like indoors, watching TikToks or whatnot. And I just like this idea that they're zoo tigers and they're going to be turned out into the wild for some wilderness training. And it's pretty much accurate, it really is. Yeah.
But before I let you go, I do have a technical question. I really love like some of the
Yeah.
aerial shots of the
Mhm.
mountains, and obviously you've been making movies like this. I mean, do you have like now you have
Drones are
drones?
different from 2004. We did not have drones in 2004, of course.
Oh, okay.
That is
That's,
the difference. Yeah.
yeah, I was curious about that because I mean, I think now you do have drones, but I'm not even sure if drones would work in that environment. If drones would just
Yeah,
be
they
like,
do actually. It's
oh,
surprising.
okay.
Yeah, it's pretty thin. The helicopters are getting better. Like in 2004, I think the helicopters go higher now than they used to.
Mm,
They certainly go more. I mean, there's like helicopter. It was a huge problem for our sound recording because there's helicopters like
sure.
they're actually limiting helicopters now. They're even going to have helicopters like actually go past the ice fall now because people will pay for it, and it is dangerous. And anyway, so it's sort of cheating if you kind of fly up to Camp 2, but at some point the air gets too thin and it's really difficult for helicopters. But
Mm,
even that seems better now. But drones, yeah, you can do some beautiful drone stuff. And there's one shot, not to give too much away, but there's a shot at the top of K2
mm,
that I think is amazing as well, even with just a selfie stick and a wide angle where you look down and it's just a great shot. I don't think I've seen this really before properly, but you look down on this mountain, you realize it's like a pinnacle and you're standing on the top. And of course, with the way the wide angle works, like you're just standing on this, like, and it drops all the way off, and you really get that feel of like what it's like to stand on top of the mountain because
mm,
it's falling away and everything is below you, but like a long way below you. And it's sort of extraordinary because these people like have just summited, but they're so precariously like standing on this like patch of nothing, which is what a mountain summit is, right? And it just falls off. And that shot is pretty cool. I think that's the last shot in the movie, but didn't mean to give it away.
yeah. Anyway, listen, I really appreciate the filmmakers like you and Jimmy and Chai who shoot these things that I mean I would never
Jimmy's a
make.
little bit more of a mountaineer than me, I confess.
Maybe.
I think that's a no contest situation. But
Uh, but still, I'm glad I could
right,
you
yeah.
guys filmed this for the rest of us who won't ever go up there ourselves. We get to see it. And congratulations on the retrospective. I'm definitely gonna. I might go see the Crash Reel again. Again, it's been a while. I've never seen it.
Oh, that's
Uh,
good. That's a good rewatch.
I've
That's a
never seen it on a big screen either. I'm pretty sure I just saw a screener back in
It's good. I
2013.
have to
Yeah.
say, I've caught that a couple of times over the years. That was 2013, and I always think, well, I'll just watch the beginning and do a sound check because I
Perfect.
have a couple of screens over the recent years, and then I just think I get sucked in. I don't know what happens. It's really good. The other one I mean, this is really good. My sort of, have you seen Devil's Playground? My first one.
No, I haven't. I was going to ask for recommendations of your own work. What to
I
check
mean,
out.
they're all, you can't go wrong. The one that's quite interesting that the New York Times called one of the 10 best movies of the year, but nobody's really watched is Bring Your Own Brigade that came out like at the height of
Yeah, I've
COVID.
heard of that one, and I know. Yeah.
Nobody really wanted to know about the fire problem in the middle of the COVID problem, or indeed in general. It's a tough one unless you actually want to find out about what's going on with fires, which maybe it's a bit more of a California concern, but I'm really proud of that one. That was a little bit, there was a real pain to make. And but I think I really got to the bottom of what's going on with that. And I'm really proud because that was a tough one. Wasteland, of course, in many ways is my big hit. It's definitely won more awards than I think any other documentary, let alone my documentaries. But I love that movie. And have you seen that one that's about the artist in the garbage dump in Rio?
No, I haven't.
Oh,
All I've seen is the crash reel. That's all I've seen of your
bring a
work.
hanky.
It's
I
just
know, like I'm so excited because they're really good on a big screen. And Wasteland is like it's on the curriculum in Australia. It's like compulsory
oh wow.
high schoolers or something. But like it's such a beautiful, the people in that movie are like indelible. And it's I think it's such an interesting bunch of people. It's so thought-provoking and so emotional. And I don't know, I just feel proud when the audience can connect with the people. And I feel like my job's to kind of get out of the way, but to find the right people that have that really incredible, rare, very special gift. Like you cast for this. I mean, you cast, it's like how many movie stars are there that really have it? I mean, there's
Hmm.
real people that they have that same thing, which Lhakpa has, which is that they're not just going through something like tremendous and compelling, but they're going to let you in to the absolute emotional internal sort of experience of that along the way and take you in on that ride and really be with them. And that's just such a gift that some people have, this incredible generous way of sharing. And that is the people in my movies. You know, that's the strength. The good movies that I've made are because the people in them, I've found the people that can and are in that moment in their lives. Sometimes when they're going through such tough stuff. My short film, The Lion's Mouth Opens, I mean, she's facing the most hard piece of news I think of in the world. I don't think there's a harder thing to go through than a diagnosis of Huntington's disease. And then the tsunami, the cherry blossom, you're going through the tsunami with the Japanese people who went through the tsunami.
Oh wow.
The blossom and the cherry blossoms come later, but at the time you're in the thick of this unfolding tsunami and with people really losing their loved ones and recounting it. Um and they let you in, and that's the privilege of my like whole life is that I'm sort of like almost like the midwife or something, but I don't know how to describe it. I haven't formulated this thought very well. I'm making it up on the spot and that came out wrong. Midwife, I don't know about that, but I am like just there trying to really get this sort of moment, like understand what's happening and marshal the resources that we have, you know, the camera and the sound and all the things we need to actually capture it and get the right shot so that when we get back to the editing room, we'll be able to convey, you know, the truth and the power of that moment. And that's what I really love, just that connecting the audience with the people in the movie. And if you get a chance to see Wasteland, you'll see what I mean, or any of them.